as you see the Korean startups, do you think they have opportunity also in Silicon Valley because maybe like U.S. companies excel in English and also maybe developing skills? So in that terms, do you also think they have opportunity in that?
I do. I think the Korean startups, as they become stronger, should think globally and definitely think about selling their products and services to those of us in Silicon Valley. Also, there may be a way in which those in Silicon Valley have some software that complements the Korean company, and they can deliver a product together that is better than either one of them could have done separately.
So you just mentioned after the conference that it was a pity you couldn't mention there were so many women entrepreneurs. Yeah. So in Silicon Valley right now there are surprisingly not many women venture capitalists, and that's actually a little bit more harsh in Korea. So what do you think there could be like better solution to improve this situation?
Yeah, my own partner that succeeded so well when I took my venture capital experience and we went to India and we backed a large variety of Indians. My partner there was a woman, Robin Richards, and I at that time realized how important it is to have a woman in the mix, in the startup team, because there's a certain empathy that women have that men often don't have. There's a certain connectivity that they can bring about between the customer and the supplying company. There are all kinds of reasons why men and women fit together, and it works very, very well. So I encourage every entrepreneur team to have some women involved.
So in terms of when you see Korean startups, do you also have thoughts to maybe invest in them? Or if not, how would you give them advice to improve themselves?
I think that if I were to today decide to start a venture capital company in any country in the world, I would not go to India this time. I went to India the last time in 1994, and it worked out very well. We were very profitable. But I would go to South Korea because there's an entrepreneurial spirit there now, and there seems to be an encouragement of startup ventures that wasn't there when we went to India. When in 1994, there were only a few big companies in South Korea that really controlled the economy. That's not true today, and so many of these young entrepreneurs are starting up companies, and I would definitely go to South Korea as my first choice for as a venture capitalist trying to back good entrepreneurs.
So as you mentioned, philanthropic investments that you make. Now, what are your priorities, I guess, when you invest into the companies?
Well, the priorities are very similar in the nonprofit world as they are in the for-profit world when it comes to talent. When it comes to sizing up a good entrepreneur, I look for energy, brain power, dedication, vision, all of those factors, and persistence. And if the entrepreneur has that, whether it's for-profit or not for-profit, it would be, if it was philanthropic, they're more likely to succeed with all that talent. But they do better if they've had some for-profit experience typically.
Just mentioned about the entrepreneur mind that you would like to see in entrepreneurs, and what about the idea or service that changed the world? What do you think that is?
Well, Me Too ideas are not very good typically to back. I would not start a new grocery store, for instance, right next to another grocery store. But I would like to start a new system for delivering groceries that wasn't there in the past. So yes, I think the idea is very important, but it starts with the people. Are the people? I will never be able to figure out the pluses and minuses of the idea if the entrepreneur hasn't thought through well, and I can ask questions and get good answers. So I would say definitely the entrepreneur is very important, and so is the idea.
Mm-hmm. I had like a thought that might be you kind of like competition. So how do you define competition in your?
Well, our the venture capital business when I started, which was at the beginning of Silicon Valley, there was no competition. Then there were 2 or 3 others that started, and we shared deals, and we went together into an investment, and it was very healthy, and our returns were very high. Our returns were something like 40% per year growth in income. Then, because of those high returns, Wall Street sent a lot of money into Silicon Valley, and a lot of new venture capital companies started up. So there is a lot of competition today in Silicon Valley, and there are billion-dollar funds, and they are having trouble finding the right deal. But then once they find it, they don't want to share it with anybody else because they've got such a big fund, they need it all themselves. So they lack the benefit that we had of sharing ideas and thoughts and investigative work that help protect us from making a bad investment. And we usually succeeded, so we had much higher record of success. But when my partner and I went to India to fund, we were the first venture capital company to go to India. It was easy because we didn't have any competition. We were the only ones. So being first has a great benefit, and you get all the good opportunities. Somebody that starts a venture capital company now in Silicon Valley is not likely to do very well, really.
So I have like kind of deep questions. When we see developing countries, just like Nepal, there needs to be this maybe kind of ecosystem growing there also. And how do you think we can really empower them by? Because I wanted to ask your idea, because here there are so many, maybe too much innovation coming out, where really
Never
needs
too much
to be
innovation.
Never too much.
You can't
innovation.
have too much innovation.
Oh, okay. But I wanted to really help and save those developing countries. But how do we really connect those two things together?
Right. I think a good university that has a good engineering school is important in generating new ideas, innovation that's important, high technology that is ahead of other technology that's available before the discoveries made in the university. So without Stanford University, there would not have been a Silicon Valley, I'm quite sure, even though the weather is very good. So I think a good university is very important. encouragement of venture capital, so that by the local and the government is important. In other words, if there's a free enterprise system, it's much better for the venture capitalist and for the entrepreneur. And an energetic population, an entrepreneurial population like the Chinese, like the Koreans, like many Americans.
Mm-hmm. There was saying that maybe there are like bubbles in this startup ecosystem, because Snapchat was valuated like $1 billion, and people say, oh, I think that's kind of weird. So what do you think about that?
So the valuation of these companies will always be a jagged tooth that will go up and down over time, and there'll be bubbles. There'll be an over-enthusiasm for technology, and then there'll be, oh gosh, I can't afford it, let's get back to hard earnings and solid companies that don't have a lot of cloud and a lot of hope in the so there are always going to be bubbles, and then shallow periods. There'll be optimism, and then there'll be pessimism, and there will always be people who strike it rich and people who lose all their money. There's always this up and down reaction because people get over enthusiastic, and then there's a bubble, and then it bursts, and then there's over degree of pessimism. So that will happen. And in 1990, the bubble burst, and we all ended up trying to scamper to get our money back and get money out of whatever we were in, because it was falling. And there was a major problem in confidence in the overall economy here in the United States. In 2008, there was this collapse of confidence. And that happens, and that will always happen.
Mm-hmm. We'll start the interview.
I'll get closer.
Like when you see Nepal, it's like...
When I see Nepal?
I mean,